Iran was struck by joint operations that were conducted by United States of America and Israel. Now there is a retaliation that has come in from Iran, and they have gone on to go ahead and target the Gulf nations. So this entire conflict is much expanded. It is involving West Asia, and even as we see the expansion of this conflict and it is going into these many days put together, the big question that we are asking is whether India is at risk. So this is what we are here looking at, taking into account the strategic interest that India really has in the region. We are looking at this particular region, which is West Asia. We do see Saudi Arabia majorly, also Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman. All of these areas comprise of the Gulf nations. India has key supply, and as far as diaspora, all of that will get impacted because these strategic ties exist with the Gulf nations when India is concerned. India there is poised separately, but those ties connect the country with the Gulf, and that is what we are here to look at. If you look at what is right here down, it's called the Strait of Hormuz. So let's begin with the oil supply that has been impacted because of the Strait of Hormuz that Iran is now choosing to block. Remember, that heft, as far as the sea route is concerned, this narrow stretch right here that we see is just a 31-kilometer stretch at the that narrowest point. That is where Iran has the kind of, in fact, leverage that is choosing to exercise now that it has been struck by the US and Israel. What it has gone on to do is block the Strait of Hormuz. So here's how India is impacted. Oil supply. If we take a look at Indian oil supply as of February 2026, it was at 5.22 barrels per day. This is 5.22 million barrels per day of oil supply that India, in fact, undertook as far as the Gulf nations are concerned. Out of that, if we take a look at the crude imports, they go further into 2.5 to 2.7 million barrels per day that lay imported from the Strait of Hormuz that now stands blocked. It has been officially blocked by Tehran, and that is the missive that is out of Iran, where they have said that they are not going to be allowing any vessels to cross the Strait of Hormuz. So that direct impact of not just the exports but also crude imports that go up to tune of 2.5 to 2.7 million barrels per day, that in fact falls on India. Now, if we take a look at the Indian diaspora, how many people who are Indians who resort and in fact stay in these Gulf countries, they go up to 10 million plus. These are the number of Indians that are in fact spread across the GCC countries, and that is the significant number that one is talking about, and that's why India is closely watching this escalation that has really been blown out of proportion also, because the escalations, the strikes, the counter strikes, the interceptions, anything which is to do with this conflict in West Asia isn't really stopping. When we take a look at the students out of that Indian diaspora, particularly in countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, that forms a significant number as well. Indian students who are out there to study. And remember, any kind of escalation sees an impact on that crowd, and that's why it becomes really, really imperative for the Indian government to get them out and back in the country to safety. Now, if we take a look at the second aspect, which is also closely related to oil as well, which is trade and business, as far as the India and GCC bilateral trade goes, it stands at a tune of $178.7 billion. You can see the amount here, and this is the number that we have from you from the last fiscal of 2024-25. If we take a look at the free trade agreements that have been inked, particularly with the UAE as of May 2022, that also is something that we must speak about. If we take a look at Oman after this, there is, of course, this SEPA that has been signed with Oman, and all of this is going to be impacted as far as the Gulf nations go because of that increased transit route that is we are talking about. Strait of Hormuz blocked. Now India in fact goes ahead and does any kind of trade, any kind of business, oil, imports, export, all of this goes through Africa, and that will go through the Cape of Good Hope adding those extra days as far as the rerouting is concerned. So extra 15 days that will be added to that entire travel, if India has to not just bring in goods or oil or even go ahead and export it. Now, if we take a look at the remittances that India really has and the kind of money that workers who are, let's say, working in these Gulf countries are bringing into India, that's what we mean by remittances. If we take a look at the year 2010 to 11 till 2023 to 24, look at the number here. It has gone up from $55.6 billion to $118.7 billion. So that's how it has exponentially increased, almost double the number that was there in 2010 to now till 2024, the number went up to $118.7 billion. Out of that, UAE has 19.2% share. If we take a look at Saudi Arabia, it has 6.7% share. Qatar has 4.1%. Kuwait, 3.9%. All of this concerns household incomes, foreign exchange, all of that could be hit because of it. Next up is, of course, the stock market. And the stock market capitalization that has been lost, and that amount that we are looking at is a whopping number. That is 6.5 trillion. That is the number and the money that is at hand, and this is just on Monday. And this is what we are looking at as far as the market capitalization goes, the loss that has been witnessed. As far as the Sensex is concerned, it was down by 1,000 points. Nifty went below 24,700 points. All of this impact India is looking at, and India is ready to brace. And that's why that entire missive has come out by the Ministry of External Affairs. They want this escalation to stop. They really are talking about the human cost, because they have people, more than 10 million people who are in fact residing in these Gulf countries, and they of course have trade and imports and exports. The entire free trade agreement that they have signed with these countries, all of that will be impacted, and of course this entire blockage hits India badly.